Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. Today, I was going to discuss planetary transits, or Gochara, as it's known as in Sanskrit, for the month of May 2025. This talk is from a Vedic astrology or Jyotish perspective, so keep that in mind. Vedic astrology is ancient Indian astrology that's more than 5,000 years old, and it seems like the theme for this month is writing a new chapter. So let's take a look. Note beforehand, the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, financial, or professional life advice of any kind. If you are in need, please contact an appropriate professional for support. Then you might take a minute or two to read the rest of this disclaimer. Okay, so if you're new to Vedic astrology, Jyotish are my videos. All of my teaching videos on the subject are my concepts playlist. They can be found there. Wherever you see a little asterisk in one of my talks, that means there's a teaching video on that subject if you'd like to learn more. My channel is all about playlists, so I'm good about putting slotting videos into different playlists so that different topic areas, the videos on those topics are in the same place. They're easy to find. So like I have a grahas planets playlist, bhavas houses playlist, yogas planetary combinations playlist, and there are others. Also, I've analyzed a lot of charts of famous people, places, and moments in time on the channel, and recently updated my birth chart archive list video. So it's the archive list 2025 video that's up now, that's published. So that video lists all the different famous charts I've looked at on the channel, and the video you can find them in because you can't always know from the title of the video that I've looked at famous charts. Like this monthly video, I'm going to be going through 3 famous charts, and I typically do that for monthly videos. So yeah, so that's up if you want to look at, it helps you to learn astrology that way. The other thing I was wondering if you guys could help me out is if you have interest or if you know of famous people, places, or moments in time that you think might be interesting to look at their chart, you can drop them, drop those names in the comment section for potential future videos. I can't guarantee I'll do a video and publish it, but at least it'll build my famous bird chart database. Um, because especially like in these monthly videos, I'm trying to find famous charts that basically embody the energies of the current planetary movements. Um, Sometimes too, like you can't really find good birth data on places, moments, or time or anything, so I have to verify all that to see if it makes sense. But anyway, it would help me out, especially too, because when I do research for these different videos, most of the stuff that comes to me on the internet when I'm doing my research, it's usually like United States focused or Europe focused, which is neither here nor there. But especially because I have viewers from all around the world, I really want to try to be inclusive and branch out. But again, I don't get a lot of information about Africa, or whatever, Antarctica or Central Asia. And then the other thing is because the way that I typically find charts is I get inspiration from usually the news and headlines, but again, there's not a lot that pops up there, frankly, even in the big newspapers in the United States where I'm located. I also get inspiration from movies. So also, besides names of famous people, places, or moments of time, if you know of a movie that's pretty good, that's about a famous person, place, or moment in time, you can drop that in the comments below as well. And again, I'll check it out. As you'll see, of the 3 different birth charts I analyzed for this month, 2 out of the 3 I got the birth chart, from inspiration based on movies that I've watched. So that helps me out. So anyway, and then again, you guys can see more videos that you guys are, more interested in. So anyway, if you've been following along with the teaching videos, the last 3 that I've published are spiritual combinations, Shrikant, Srinath, and Virenchi Yoga, then the Libra constellation or Tula Rashi, and then mantras for the sun or Surya in Vedic astrology. And then if you're new to all this, but you really want to, learn some more about Vedic astrology, I have a list here at the bottom of the slide of the first few videos, foundational videos I would look at to develop a foundation so that, you learn more and also get more out of talks like this, because talks like this are very, interpretation based. Okay, so here's a list of the dates for May. Let me just move my little box out of the way so I can see the date. Hold on a second. Okay, so May 6th, Mercury enters Aries or Mesha. Rashi constellation, and it also simultaneously is entering Ashwini nakshatra. 9th through 19th of May, Jupiter is sandhi, meaning it's crossing signs, so it's in the first or last degree of a sign. That means it's going to be unstable. I'm going to talk about, what all this means. This is just, I just start off with a list of dates so you know when stuff's moving in the sky. Excuse me. Then May 11th, Sun enters Kritika Nakshatra. May 12th, there's a full moon in Libra, Tula Rashi in Vishaka Nakshatra. That same day, Mars enters Ashlesha Nakshatra. May 14th, Sun enters Taurus or Vrishabha, so it's samkranti. And Mercury enters Bharani Nakshatra, and the same day, Jupiter enters Gemini or Mithuna. So then, May 16th, Venus enters Revati Nakshatra. May 17th, Mercury goes combust or asta. May 18th, Rahu enters Aquarius or Kumbha, and Ketu enters Leo or Simha. And so you can see with Jupiter moving and Rahu Ketu moving, we got three of the slowest moving planets all shifting within a few days of each other. And Saturn, the slowest moving planet, just changed signs March 29th. So between those 4 out of 9 classic Jyotish planets, a lot of, deep foundational shiftings going on. May 20th, Saturn has an exact aspect on the Sun. And then May 21st, Mercury enters Kritika Nakshatra. May 23rd, Mercury enters Taurus. And then May 25th, Sun enters Rohini Nakshatra. And that same day, Saturn has an exact aspect on Mercury. May 26th, there's a new moon in Taurus, Rohini Nakshatra. And then May 27th, Mercury enters Rohini as well. And then May 30th, Mercury crosses Sun. And then May 31st, Venus enters Aries. Okay, so those are the dates. Let's take a look at what this, looks like overall. So on this slide, what I have is I have charts. The chart on the left is for May 1st, and the chart on the right is for May 31st. So this is like basically how the sky is shifting over the course of the month of May. Okay, now what I have with both of these I use North Indian style charts in my work. So if you're not familiar, to get to the rising sign, you go to the top diamond in the middle, and you'll see a little one. I think you almost can't see it because there are a bunch of lines, but there's a little one in the bottom corner. That one, even though it's the first house, rising sign, ascendant, lugna, these are all different names for the same thing. The little one in the bottom corner indicates the first zodiac sign, which is Aries or Mesha in Sanskrit. So basically what I've done is I oriented both of these charts to Aries. The reason why I do that is that Aries, when you have Aries in the first house, you can essentially that creates a natural zodiac when you have the first constellation in the first house. And the natural zodiac is essentially a collective energy chart. It's basically a birth chart for the whole world or all of humanity. Okay, so we're looking at collective energy. So the chart on the left, let's start there. Again, May 1st, 2025. The time is 7:10 a.m. It's neither here nor there. It's Eastern Standard Time, New York time. That's the time zone I live in. Again, Aries rising or Mesha Lugna here. The moon nakshatra is an Ardra. Okay, so Ardra, especially the moon is a emotional, mental, planet. It's and Ardra is symbolized by a drop of water. The drop of water can come from like a rain cloud, but it can also be like a teardrop. So usually, like, when we have planets going through Ardra, there can tend to be like quite stormy type energy, but also like a lot of sadness. And also, it tends to indicate a lot of psychology type stuff. Okay. So with Moon and Ardra, I would be looking at like sadness and mental health type stuff. Okay. Then the dasha period is the planetary period, is Rahu, 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 Venus. Well, that makes it very clear. Rahu and Venus are both in the 12th house of losses, expenditures, isolated places. Venus is the practical counselor, and Rahu is the north node of the moon. Rahu is it symbolizes things like hidden, unexpected, unusual energies. Also, Rahu indicates ambition. Okay, so when we have, and you can see in 12th house here, there's that circle and kind of a dark pink red color. So Mercury, Saturn, Venus, and Rahu are all in the 12th house at the beginning of the month. And you can see that on the second chart, like the only thing left at the end of the month is Saturn. But the thing is that if you look closely, Saturn's at 3 degrees 40 minutes, Venus is at 6 degrees 9 minutes, and then Rahu's at, it's sandhi, it's unstable. Rahu's at 54 minutes, okay? And just like a week or so before this, Saturn, Venus, and Rahu were all in the same degree at the edge of Pisces. So a lot of unstable stuff was going on. The 12th house also indicates like foreign trade, like all the foreign trade and tariff stuff that's going on, okay? And we just had eclipses in March. The eclipses were going on basically in the 12th house here of Pisces and then the 6th house here of Virgo. Okay. So a lot of chaos, a lot of strange, unusual stuff going on. But especially with the dasha period pointing us towards Rahu, 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 there's still a lot of strange, unusual kind of endings and abrupt costs and things like that. So again, things aren't, quite steady yet. It's kind of the last hurrah for this. But, luckily, like Venus is moving past, out of the Saturn Rahu tight knots. But Venus and Saturn were in planetary war twice in the last month or so. So they were going head to head, and that destabilizes both those planets and the houses that they own. So 12 planet or 4 out of 12 houses were destabilized besides the 2 planets and the things they symbolize. So Venus, though, at least so there's some good points here. So Venus at least is exalted in Pisces, so that's good. The other thing is Venus and Jupiter, they're in parivartana exchange of houses with each other. So the reason why is Jupiter's in sign of Jupiter's in Taurus, a sign of Venus, and Venus is in Pisces, which is a sign of Jupiter. So you can essentially swap those 2 planets, okay, and that makes them both stronger, which is nice, okay. The other thing that happens is because you have these 2 natural benefic planets on either side of the lugna, right, the rising sign, Jupiter in the 2nd house and Venus, in the 12th house, that creates what we call a shub kartri yoga. So shub is good and kartri is a scissor, so it's like a good scissors yoga, if you let me know, I'll loosely translate it. So what that's going to do is that's going to cut through obstacles and problems. Okay. So the parivartana yoga and the shubkartra yoga are helping a lot the first house, and the first house sets the tone for the rest of the chart. Okay. The other thing that's nice about the first house right now is you have Sun exalted in Aries, and Sun is a planet that represents authority, government, soul, health, general health. So there's a lot of energy because Sun's a fire planet, and it's exalted. It's up here. So, and even those there's some, strange, unusual losses still going on, in the 12th house here, there's still a lot of protection. Okay? But the thing is that Jupiter's moving out and Venus is moving out by the end of the month. So we lose that parivartana yoga and we lose that shubkartra yoga. Okay, Sun is also moving out, so we lose that kind of direction or drive that Sun is giving at the beginning of the month. Okay. Um, So other yogas are planetary combinations. So that's when you get different planets and different combinations, and chart. It gives kind of a super meta effect beyond just the house by house or planet analysis or vichara. So other yogas here, Duradhara, the moon is also supported because it's got true planets on either side. Um, and then there's a Shubha Bhayachari solar yoga because, again, this Jupiter Venus is not only protecting the lugna, but it's also protecting and supporting the sun, which is nice. The thing, though, is that there is instability here. So I mentioned Rahu is sandhi, meaning it's in the last degree, first or last degree of a sign. Mars, wait a minute, Mars is not. Let me check and see. Yeah, I got to change that. So basically, Rahu and Ketu are both sandhi. Okay, so it's making them unstable. And again, both of those planets, not just Rahu, but Ketu also symbolizes like hidden, unexpected energy. Okay, so a lot of just kind of weird stuff, frankly, is going to happen because Rahu is in again houses of losses, expenditures, and remote places, but Ketu's in the 6th house of daily routine and enemies. Okay, um, So let's see, Mars. So Sun is exalted in Aries, but Mars, Sun, the reason why I'm talking about Mars now, Sun and Mars are the two leadership planets. They're kind of the two fiery planets. So Sun being in Aries, that's usually like kind of a start or a boost to like authority or boss or government. Mars is debilitated in Cancer, though. So they're both in what we call exaggerated positions, Sun being very strong and Mars being, frankly, kind of weak here. Um, and so you're going to get like a lot of exaggerate. And the thing is, like, they're both in what we call movable signs. So that means there's going to be a lot of action, especially with Sun. The Sun is in Aries, which is a movable fire sign. So a lot of, you know, changing actions here. And then Mars is in a Cancer, which is a movable water sign. So it means there's going to be a lot of like emotional churning and actions here. Okay. So we're going to get a lot of exaggerated and multiple actions here. And I think that there's some ambition. I think the Rahu, what it's trying to do, because there's also a Kala Sarpa yoga in this chart. The Kala Sarpa yoga is, I'd say it's when all the planets are on one side of the Rahu Ketu axis or the other. Okay, this is going to exaggerate Rahu and Ketu even more, which are already unstable because they're Sandhi. And there's also that circle in the 12th house of 4 planets. That's also pravraja yoga. So again, life focus yoga. And we're already, besides the pravraja, we're already, picking up through the cha period, Rahu, 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 Venus. So it keeps taking us to the 12th house of losses. So it looks like there's some attempt here to, salvage unusual losses that have been had. Okay, that's the beginning of the month. Then if we move to the second chart, May 31st, the moon nakshatra is in Pusha, which is almost the opposite of Ardra. Ardra, again, is a storm cloud and teardrops and psychology and stuff like that. Pusha is symbolized by a cow's udder. So, like it's like the milk and cookies. That's what I think, like milk and cookies type of nakshatra. Oh, and I haven't mentioned nakshatra. So if you're not familiar, nakshatras are lunar mansions. There are about 27 lunar mansions, and every night the moon passes through a different one. So after about 27 nights, you get a lunar month. Okay, and each of these nakshatras has a different energy and different symbolism attached to them. Okay, so now the moon has gone from the storm cloud to Pusha. Okay, so again, nurturing and stabilizing energy for the mind and emotions. Dasha period at the end of the month, on this last, in the second chart here, Saturn, Moon, Venus, Saturn. Okay, so Saturn, we're still stuck here in the 12th house of losses. And again, Saturn's going to be in the 12th house or in Pisces here, 12th house is the natural zodiac or Pisces for until I believe it's February 2028. So almost 3 years, and Saturn's a planet that indicates like obstacles, delays, and structure and stuff like that. I kind of think of it as like, in those cartoons when you get the steamroller just like going ding, 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 sort of zzz, down the street, just slowly, slowly, just pressing it all flat. That's kind of what I think of Saturn as. Okay, so the shot period. So we still are dealing with losses here, but these are long-term losses because Saturn's the slowest moving planet. So this is even though like all the energy and activity is mostly broken up, from this 12th house that we've been like it's really been churning the last few months, as because here at the beginning of the month you have 4 planets, but at some point there were actually 6. And I think for even like half a day there were 7 planets out of 9 in Pisces for a while. So, a lot of energy going that way to that house. So we're still picking up Saturn, but now we got Moon and Venus. Okay, so again, Moon also, besides being in Pusha, Moon is now stabilizing because it's in its own sign of Cancer in the 4th house. So that's going to help stabilize Mars, which has been debilitated. So that's nice. But Moon is an exaggerated condition because it's in its own sign. So it's Swa. We call that Swa. That's going to bring strength to Moon. But Moon, when we have Moon in the 4th house, Moon also symbolizes Mother, and we have Moon in the 4th house. The 4th house also symbolizes Mother. When we have Moon in the 4th house, that creates what we call a karaka, which actually can create problems related to the person, related to the planet and the house, meaning specifically mom. Okay. So there can be issues with mom, but the other thing that 4th house represents is home, and moon can represent home. The other thing is moon and the 4th house represent like happiness potentially. So moon is strong, but it's with the debilitated planet. So and Mars at that point is going to be in a shlesha, moving out of Pusha itself. So Mars is going from like a nurturing energy to more of an erratic energy because shlesha is symbolized by a snake. Okay, so and snakes are, can be erratic. If you're not familiar with snakes, I mean, they can hiss and bite and, whatever, kind of, rear their head, or they can also slink away and hide and that sort of thing. So there's still, even though there's still some attempt to stabilize emotions and home and possibly mom here, there's still some erratic energy going on. Okay. And again, Moon and Venus are the two emotional planets. Okay, so Moon is strong, but again, an exaggerated condition with this debilitated Mars. Venus, you can see, is sandhi. So was it just literally crossed into Aries, where because it's been in Pisces for I think 4 months, a really long time, because it retrograded and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, so there's still unstable emotions here related to a long-term loss that occurred um, during this whole eclipse cycle and pravraja, 6, 7 planets in the in Pisces energy that's been going the last few months. I mean, it's been pretty chaotic. Okay, so. Um, there's still, at this point, there's still a Shubha Bhattacharya, solar yoga here. I mean, at least you still have Jupiter and Venus on either side of the sun. So that's nice. It's going to still support the sun and things it represents. So career and authority. It's not going to be so fiery because sun is moved out of its exaltation position. And again, it's exalted in a movable fire sign and it's a fire planet. So it was like wild and woolly and, shoot from the hip, it's like shoot first, ask questions later type of energy. Um, and then we still have the Kalasarpa yoga, so there's still some ambition here. But again, the ambition shifted. Okay. So while Rahu and Ketu have been on the 612 axis for this, again, natural zodiac chart, it shifted to 511. Okay. So the fifth house is more about children, creativity, romance, and Rahu in the 11th house. The 11th house indicates like clubs, group society, income, socializing, especially on the secular level. Okay. So Venus, Rahu, and Ketu are all sandhi. They're all, unstable here. They're all in the first or last degree of a sign. And especially Venus, because Venus is not only sandhi, but it's gandanta. So there are 12 different positions where you can be sandhi, anytime you cross a line or about to cross a line, your first or last degree of a sign. That's unstable because you're crossing signs and every sign is a different element. Okay. But 3 of those 12 transition points are also gandanta points, meaning that you're not only changing signs, but you're changing nakshatras. And so it's like a dual unstable. Okay. So Venus is very unstable this last day. And then Saturn, or Rahu and Ketu unstable as well. So Moon is not only karako bhava nash. Oh, it's also Moon. Even more, exaggeration to Moon. Moon is also digbala, has directional strength. So it's swa. So that's going to be strength. Digbala is more strength. It's with the debilitated planet, less strength, and it's karako bhava nasha problem. So a really exaggerated Moon. But the thing too that's nice about the second chart, even though it's less intense, okay, and it's like again, there's some attempt to get more grounding and like, you know, calming down after this whole long storm's been going on last few months. They're moving the nakshatras they're moving into are much gentler nakshatras. So like in the first chart here, we have Saturn, Venus, and Rahu. Those are all in Bhadrapada nakshatras, which basically there are 2 of them there. They're symbolized by the front legs or the back legs of a funeral pyre. Okay, so smoke, flames, turning things to ashes. Like that's essentially what's going on here. Okay, for all of us on some level over the past few months. Okay. So, though at least Rahu is still going to be in Purva Drapada, Saturn's still in Uttar Drapada, but at least Venus is like moved out of that whole Pisces, even though it was exalted there. The other thing that's helpful is that you can see in the first chart, Saturn is on Mercury, it's on Venus, it's on Rahu. So again, Saturn represents obstacles, delays, long-term problems, death, destruction. And Saturn is aspecting Jupiter. So Saturn's aspecting the two natural benefics, so that's slowing down how much the two natural benefics can help. Saturn is also aspecting Ketu, so, and then Moon's been zipping around here. So Saturn is, at least in the first chart, on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 8 planets. So Saturn's slowing down the kind of rebuild or recovery here. Okay, it's also slowing down how much good Jupiter and Venus can do, even though they're in these parivartana and kartari yogas. Okay, the first chart also I didn't mention has a balarishta yoga. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets out of 9 classic planets in negative houses. That can indicate a very, like a balarishta yoga. If we look at somebody's chart and they have a balarishta yoga, I usually see it as 4 or more planets, 4 or 5 planets or more in negative houses. That can indicate a balarishta. So usually there's trouble in childhood. It can be mental issues or physical issues or what have you. And sometimes it's so strenuous that the kid doesn't survive childhood. Okay. So you've got that going on the first chart as well. So at least that's also gone. So you're losing some of the good yogas, but you're also losing the bad, sort of negative yogas, so to speak. And again, we're moving into, for the most part, gentler nakshatras, so that's helpful too. But the other thing is, like in the first chart, you have a kartari, so a good scissor yoga, because Jupiter and Venus, the two natural benefics, are on either side of the lagna rising sign. In the second chart, you have a kartari yoga, because you have natural malefic planets on either side of the um, lagna there, rising sign, because you have Sun there and Saturn. Those are always natural malefics. Mercury can go either way depending on what it's with, but Mercury's with the Sun, and Mercury is also being aspected by Saturn. So Mercury in the second chart is a natural malefic. Um, so you have 2 natural malefics in the second house, and Saturn and a natural malefic in the 12th. So that's a kartari yoga. That's a negative Caesar's yoga. What that means is, like, sometimes, like, no matter how hard you try, like, you can't break through and, like, create progress. So, it's a mixed bag. It's a different, like, I like to say, game board, that we're dealing with. But I think towards the end of the month, especially because we're moving into, like, gentler nakshatras and nicer nakshatras, like Rohini, which is like the most fertile and attractive, seductive, kind of luscious, grounded nakshatra, and Mrigashirsha. Mrigashirsha is a gentle nakshatra. Um, what we're looking at the end of the month is like finding some breathing room and focusing on home and happiness, property, freedom, because especially the moon here, the fourth house not only represents home and happiness, but Mars is there. Mars represents property, and the fourth house represents property. And then freedom, the fourth house is a mokshasthana, so a house of freedom. Okay, and also focusing on emotions here, okay, despite whatever long-term losses have occurred over the last few months, especially. And also, Venus and Moon are the 2 creativity and art aesthetic planets. So this might even be like a physical upgrade, like a glow up type, thing, or it could be um, like Venus. Well, the thing with Venus is it's not super strong in Aries, but Venus is aspecting into its own house in the seventh house, and the seventh house can indicate partnerships, and Venus is the planet of romance and social grace and compassion, generosity, that sort of thing. So it's nice in terms of relationships, Venus aspecting into Libra here in this natural zodiac chart. But the other thing is Venus aspecting its own sign in the seventh house like this could indicate like a creative venture. Okay. So, people might be thinking, especially they might be thinking of like a new venture or partnership or even side hustle or something like that. Okay. They're thinking about, like, people are thinking about how to be creative about how to, like, stabilize life, because life has been destabilized here. The other thing is, if we keep looking at Saturn, the thing with Saturn now, okay, at least Saturn, I mean, even though Saturn was kind of dimming the light or slowing down Jupiter and Venus, the two great benefics. Jupiter and Venus are also the two financial planets. So a lot of people have gone through some rough economic times in the last few months. The thing is, even when all of this clears out of the 12th house, you still have Saturn in the 12th house. And Saturn is the lord of the 11th house here, the house of income, but also clubs, group, society. So friends have been lost, clubs and groups have been lost, income has been lost here, and will continue to be lost until Saturn moves out of there, in February 2028. Okay. So there's a drain on the 11th house in the second chart. The other thing is Saturn's aspect in the second house here. The second house is also another money, big money house because the second house represents assets. So not just like physical stuff, tangible stuff, but like large portfolios, investment portfolios, like the stock market. Like I did a whole video on the lunar eclipse in the middle of March, March 14th, if I remember correctly. And I looked at different historical moments for the New York Stock Exchange, including Black Tuesday, and how that was a big blowout for the New York Stock Exchange, and how actually that's a moment in time was very similar to the eclipse stuff that we had going on in March. And then, I said it looks like we're probably going to get a dip in the market, and that's what happened. So with Saturn basically draining the 11th house into losses and expenditures in the 12th house, Saturn sitting on the second house of assets, Saturn also aspecting the sixth house of debt and daily activity, there's going to be restructuring here in terms of finance and daily activity. And if you pair that with Venus aspecting into its own house in the seventh house of independent business, and Moon here, this could very well be like a home business or side hustle or something like that. Um, and adjusting, especially related to something creative or art or aesthetics or whatever, because there needs to be some change, adjustment to change of work and authority here, because Saturn not only is the lord of the 11th house of incoming groups, but Saturn's the lord of the 10th house of daily work, like 9 to 5 jobs. So a lot of people, like in the United States, government workers have lost their jobs and they're having a hard time getting new ones. And even like other businesses like UPS, that's like the big parcel delivery service. I was just reading, like, I think they're letting 20,000 people go because the people aren't buying as much stuff, partly because we're not in pandemic mode anymore, but also people are worried about money and finances and recession. But what I'm seeing here is that, Saturn, the 10th house lord going to the 12th, there's loss of work. Saturn, the 11th house lord going to the 12th house, like loss of income. Saturn aspect in the second half of the assets, like that's going to dry up. So there's some change, and then Saturn, on the sixth house of debts, that's going to increase. And then Saturn is also restructuring the daily activity. When you pair that with Venus in its own house and this moon that's, being highlighted by the Shah period, again, people are going to have to get creative about, coughing up generating some money, cash, because it looks like we're going into recession mode. Uh, So yeah, okay. So that's kind of a nutshell version. So I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to go through the different planets and how they're changing, what that means, and then again, I incorporate different famous charts. So let's see what else we got here. Okay, so on this slide, we've got Mercury, Buddha, and Venus Shukra transits for May. So May 6th, Mercury enters Aries of Mesha and Ashwini Nakshatra simultaneously. Again, that's a movable fire sign, a lot of action, and Mercury is the planet that represents decisions and communication, that sort of thing. So it looks like there's going to be decisions to lead and compete in rescuing. And part of the reason why is not just because Mercury is moving into Aries, but Sun is there where it's exalted. So you're going to get this Mercury, decision, business, and communication energy mixed with this like really strong sun, giving energy to all this, which is again indicating authority and leadership. Then May 14th, Mercury enters Bharani Nakshatra. Bharani Nakshatra is symbolized by a womb, so there's like cycles of birth and death that happen here. So this might be kind of a rocky start, like the start of maybe some new idea or decision or whatever, but it's But the thing is, like, there can be a rocky start here because the dispositor, so the ruler of Aries, is that debilitated Mars that's going on in Cancer. So it's not going to be a smooth start. It might be kind of a fast start, but not smooth, I don't think. And it might be also a little bit sort of like, not sure what to think, because again, Mercury is the analytical, logical mind planet. It likes to be efficient, and so it may not be as efficient as Mercury would like. On May 16th, Venus enters Revati nakshatra. That should be, a little, it's still, Venus is still going to be at that point. Yeah, Venus at that point is still with Rahu and Saturn, so it's still with two natural malefic planets. But Revati is a nice, gentle nakshatra. So it's Venus is pulling out of the, funeral pyre nakshatras into Revati. Revati is all about like traveling and hospitality. So I think this will start to bring some peace to the heart. Venus is like the emotions, grace and creativity, because Venus is still exalted. Venus is still the, art and artistic aesthetic planet, but it's been like, just really suppressed by these natural malefics it's been with, and, and these negative, really hardcore nakshatras. Also, is like some traveling might, come up for people. May 17th, Mercury goes combust or asta. So when a planet is combust, it means it's so close to the sun you can't see it anymore because the sun essentially, the light of the sun eclipses the light reflecting off the planet. And so Mercury, when that happens, when a planet goes combust, you can't see the outer manifestations of the planet, but the inner manifestations are more pronounced or stronger. So again, Mercury represents the analytical, logical mind, decision making, planning, strategizing. So those things might be, increased. But the outer manifestations of travel, education, communication, those might be less so, okay, less prominent. May 21st, Mercury enters Kritika Nakshatra. So this is also interesting. Kritika Nakshatra is what I consider a dual nakshatra, and Mercury is a dual planet. So there might be some kind of processing or decision making that's going on in terms of Kritika related things. So Kritika is symbolized by Kartikeya, the celestial chief of the commander in chief of the celestial army. I never say that correctly. But also like a foster mother, because Kartikeya was raised by a different foster mother. So that's where the duality comes in. Is there's like a fighting, protecting energy with the military celestial army bit, and then there's like a fostering energy, like nurturing foster mother type energy. So Mercury again is a dual nakshatra. So it's kind of like, are we going to fight? Are we going to protect? Hard to say. The other thing is Kritika, especially because Mercury represents writing and education. Kritika is also symbolized by a sharp instrument, which could be like a pen or a pencil, not just like a knife. Sometimes it is a knife, but with Mercury, this could be like fighting or protecting or starting some sort of writing project. Okay. Which again gets us back to the kind of theme for the month of like writing a new chapter. This could literally be like writing a new chapter of like a book or whatever thing you're working on or want to work on. But it could be like writing a new chapter of life by making these decisions. Like what do we protect? What do we fight? What do we nurture? Is it better to protect or nurture? The May 23rd, Mercury enters Taurus, Vrishabha Rashi. More so once because Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is the love planet, and Kritika straddles both Taurus and Aries is ruled by Mars. So Mars is the fighting planet, Venus is the nurturing, kind of love planet. When Mercury moves into Taurus, that's going to get more grounded because Taurus is a fixed Earth sign. But also, if there was fighting going on in the beginning, fighting for something, then the energy tends to shift into being more nurturing. So, and then also Mercury, works basically is more stable in Venus and can do more because Venus is a friend sign to Mercury. Or sorry, Taurus is a friend sign to Mercury because it's ruled by Venus. The May 25th, Saturn has an exact aspect on Mercury. So this might be, a monkey wrench getting thrown into the whole plan here. Some generating or some disruption of structure to the above because Saturn is still in Uttar and Saturn's a structure planet. So whatever plan has been laid out here, there's probably going to be a monkey wrench thrown into that. And then May 27th, Mercury enters Rohini Nakshatra. So this is also nice. So, Kritika as an art potentially is related to writing. It can also be like any kind of art related to like a sharp instrument like sewing or like sketching or what else like etching, that kind of stuff. Um, but Rohini is like all sorts of like, it's like the golden nakshatra for any kind of art, creative, endeavor or whatever. And the thing is, at that point, Mercury and Sun, so Sun, the career planet, Mercury and Sun are both going to be in Rohini. I mean, we're talking like flourishing creative thoughts and career going on at the end of May. I mean, that's really nice. Then May 30th, Mercury crosses Sun. So this is going to bring a lot of energy to the soul, but also energy to, again, mercurial things, education, decisions, communication, that sort of thing. And then May 31st, Venus enters Aries, Ashwini. So there's going to be some sort of like start, especially Aries is the first constellation. So there's a lot of starting energy there, and Aries is a movable fire sign, so a lot of activity there. And Ashwini, that nakshatra is symbolized by the Kumara twins, who are uh, the celestial healers, to the gods, Um, and so there's going to be this like kind of rescuing activity, creative activity, starting some new creative activity. And again, this might be a little bit of a rescue effort, especially with Venus aspecting to Libra. Um, so again, in the collective chart, the seventh house represents independent business. Venus also represents a spouse or spouse-like partner. So this could be a startup of some new partnership or some new, again, new activity with a love interest. But also Venus aspecting Libra. Libra itself is a nakshatra or not a nakshatra, but a constellation that is symbolized by the marketplace. So again, it looks like there's some like, how do we monetize some creative efforts, or hobbies or activities and stuff like that too. Again, probably uh, uh, as a way to balance or counteract the Saturn that's, slowing down a lot of, I'd say a lot of financial activity. And again, in that second chart, once Rahu shifts into Aquarius, again, Rahu's going to bring that hidden, unexpected energy to 11th house issues. So income is going to be up for grabs, besides there being a loss of the 11th house Lord Saturn going to the 12th house. And then Rahu's like, Rahu can also symbolize things like technology and internet. So, getting involved with maybe social media or something like that, that's a possibility. Or doing some online business, creative online business, those sorts of things can be coming about. Okay, so here's our first famous chart. This is a chart for the ending of World War II in Europe. The ending of World War II in Asia happened a few months later. So in Europe, this is called VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day, and it's still celebrated every year on May 8th, except in Russia, because, well, we'll get into the exact time. The exact time is 23:01 p.m. on May 8th that the operation stopped from the German side in World War II. So, because it was Central European time, the 23:01 is Central European time because this happened in Reims, France, and Russia is an hour earlier. So I think Russia celebrates VE Day on May 9th. Is my understanding of it, which may be incorrect. But so yeah, so the reason why I chose this chart is, look, you can see in the fifth house here we have a pravraja yoga in Pisces. So we have Mars. This one's a little different. Mars, Moon, Venus, and Mercury. So Venus and Mercury are the same, but Mars and Moon are different. Yeah, and then you can see Saturn is aspecting the 12th house. So from Gemini. So actually Saturn is in there as well. And what else? Sun is in exalted in Aries again. So you can see there's a lot of similarities with this chart with the current sky pattern. That's part of why it shows it. Okay, so this moment in time, May 8th, 1945, 23:01 p.m., Reims, France. This is when operations stopped. So there was a document that was signed, I believe, the day or two before this, and it said that this was the time the operations stopped. I chose this time because I got an exact time here. I couldn't find an exact time for when the document was signed. So I was like, this is pretty close. So the Lagna nakshatra is Anuradha. Okay, Anuradha is a victory nakshatra, but victory through alliance and bridge building. So yeah, I mean, totally. Sun nakshatra is in Bharani. So Bharani cycles of life and death, and Sun represents government administration. Okay. And you can see Sun is exalted here in the sixth house of enemies. So new administration of enemies. So, they're changing the course of what their enemies can do. Then the Moon nakshatra is in Uttar Bhadrapada. This is where it's like, again, the mental, emotional part of people and also the public. Like there's a Uttar Bhadrapada is the back leg of the funeral pyre. So there's all this chaos and, things turning to ash, going on or has been going on. But Uttar Bhadrapada has this additional kind of quality to it of like taking a step back or surrendering to it or like starting to create order from chaos. So this is on the mental, emotional, and also public level here. Okay, the day lord is Mars. Mars is in this pravraja yoga. Again, the pravraja yoga is when you have three, depends on which house you're in, but it's either 3 or 4 planets. And in positive houses, it can be 3 or 4. If it's in a negative house, you need 4 planets to create a pravraja yoga. But that creates a focus, because all the planets are like basically sending their energy in one house. So the day lord is Mars. Mars is a fighting planet, military planet. And the Hora Lord is Venus, or our Lord is Venus. So again, diplomacy, Venus is diplomacy, social grace. So, and Venus is also the practical counselor. So Venus is the stronger planet of these two, and so it's going to be dominant over Mars here. So this is bringing diplomacy, and advisement. Also, the fifth house here is advice. So advice, about bringing peace to a fight or to military conflict, essentially. Birth to Shah, Saturn, Mars, Moon. So again, bringing this Moon energy again, of like starting things over mentally and emotionally for people. Then Saturn and Mars. So we've been talking about Mars, a military conflict, but Saturn is in the eighth house here, and Saturn's in Ardra nakshatra. Ardra again is that cloud, storm cloud, destruction, chaos. But also sadness here, and Saturn is as a planet represents sadness and anxiety, doubt. And so Saturn, I think Rahu as well, like they're both in Ardra. So this is like a lot of deep sadness. The eighth house is deep psychology here. And also long term deep problems. Okay. So, and Saturn happens to aspect Mars, and Mars is aspecting Saturn. So there's a mutual aspect going on here. When you get Mars and Saturn together, that can indicate engineering, but also like endurance, like an athlete. So, and also like mechanics and stuff like that. So this has like been a long-term, hardcore military campaign that's created a lot of destruction, of assets because Saturn's aspecting second house here. But Saturn, again, it's like deep psychology. This has really messed with people's minds and hearts. So yeah. So again, the creating this current this chart recreates the current sky pattern because we have the pravraja yoga in Pisces with Saturn, Venus, and Mercury, so a lot of similarities. K2 in this chart has 5-9 aspects, which it does currently. So there's going to be more K2 energy on here, and K2 is like a hidden, explosive, unexpected, fiery, and like kind of separationist, type planet. So, and we've had that going on, right? Like all kinds of weird blow ups and blowouts and stuff going on in the last few months because K2's been going in and out of finite 5-9 aspects because of the relative position of Mercury. Because Mercury is the sposer of K2, since K2 is in Virgo right now. Sun is in Bharani, so again, there's a new cycle of government going on here. And Sun in this chart is also the Lord of the 10th house of daily 9 to 5 operations. So there's like it's like we're going to restructure, like, all this fighting, not just the government, but like the day-to-day operations here. Because again, this specific time is when operations were stopped from the German side. Saturn is on Sagittarius, as it currently is. We also have a Kala Sarpa yoga here, so that there's some ambition. Um, yeah, so again, the ambition here, I think, is to, help, all this defeatist, again, Saturn and Rahu and Mars in the eighth house here. Sadness, skepticism, doubt, anxiety, depression, anger, chaos, unexpected, stormy, destructive, because Mars is in Purva Bhadrapada, Uttar Bhadrapada, one of the Bhadrapada energy, and one of the nakshatras. So there's all this stormy energy and deep psychology here. I mean, this has like been a, you know, serious mess. I mean, not just like, pummeling, physically, like countries all over Europe, but and Asia. I mean, because of World War II. I mean, Asia too, because there were two different fronts here. Um, but the psychology, how it like deeply affected the psychology of people. I mean, that's pretty wild. Um, so yeah, and then the lugna here, just go through house by house. The lugna here is Scorpio, Vrishika. It's a fixed water sign. So again, deep feelings that haven't changed. And again with this Mars and Saturn and Rahu, this is like long enduring, just nastiness going on in the deep psychology, of everybody. But starting to feel the victory because again, of a start to bring order to all the chaos, long-term chaos that's been going on. The Lagnatia, the ruling planet's Mars, it's in Uttar Bhadrapada. So again, it's in the funeral pyre, but again, the funeral pyre, back legs of a funeral pyre, so starting to get like more objective and like releasing and surrendering to the turmoil that's occurred to start to move forward. But there's also like the fifth house is also a dharma sthana, so it's a duty house. And it's also, yeah, so it's a duty and engineering piece, basically. Yeah. Moon is there an Uttar Bhadrapada, exalted Venus, debilitated Mercury, and Revati, exact aspect of Saturn. So that's the other thing. Saturn's almost an exact aspect of Mars and Moon. This is like re-engineering public, sentiments and, psychology here through this act. Public hospitality, traveling advice, public forum. So again, just trying to bring, hearts and minds, because again, in this pravraja yoga in the fifth house, the Moon and Mercury, the two mind planets, the Moon and the Venus, the two emotional planets, it's like restructuring hearts and minds and people. Yeah, pretty heavy duty. The other thing that's kind of funny is this Mars and Saturn, Moon energy, engineering, and the Moon is can be like imagination. Like, yeah, it reminds me of like Disney. Walt Disney used to, I think, coin the term of Imagineer, like imagining the, restructuring of, public sentiments, that have been, or reimagining like the end of a destructive, long-term destructive storm. Okay. And what's nice too is that this Venus that's exalted in the fifth house, this is Malavya yoga. It's one of the pancha mahapurusha yogas, or yoga that indicates a great being. And so here again, with Venus being the practical advisor and social grace diplomacy planet in the fifth house of advice, I mean, we're talking about like the best possible advice to bring peace to this long-term destructive situation. Then the second house lord is Jupiter. It aspects its own house. That's going to bring some strength there. Jupiter's in Purva Phalguni. So that's going to be like enjoyment and socializing and finer things of life, bringing some energy back to the second house of family, inner circle, and assets. Ketu's still there in Purvashada, so there's some sorting that's going on here. um, of, kind of what's left, it looks like, frankly. It looks like it's about restoring peace and balance, justice to an unusual, explosive, dual activity, kind of sorting energies of families, assets, routines, enemies, daily activity. I mean, because Jupiter is in the 10th house, it's on the second house of family, assets, inner circle. Jupiter's on the fourth house of happiness and home, lineage, family lineage. It's also on the sixth house of enemies and daily routine. So at least Jupiter is bringing some balance, or justice to these areas. Although it's not completely over because K2 is going to be moving towards Mula nakshatra, and Mula is also a destructive nakshatra. But that might also be like kind of the beginning of the end, planting the seeds at the end of this. Because again, we still have a few months. I think it's 4 or 5 months before Japan surrenders, concedes to peace, to completely end World War II. But at least the European side is done on this day. Then the third house lord is Saturn. Again, third house is siblings and neighbors, and Saturn's in the, in Ardra in the eighth house, long-term destruction of siblings and neighbors, neighborhoods. Fourth house lord is Saturn. Well, aspected by Jupiter, so trying to bring some peace and optimism to destruction, sadness at home, lineage, mother. And I would even say like country here, because some people like they even talk about like homeland or motherland and stuff like that. Also, the fourth house is a property, land. A lot of people lost their buildings blew up or their land was confiscated or whatever. And the fifth house lord is Jupiter. We've got Mars, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Saturn there. Mixed thoughts and feelings about all this, trying to bring some order to all this mess that's been going on. Sixth house lord is Mars. Um, Sun is there, exalted, aspected by Ketu and Jupiter. So again, with Mars and K2, this has been an explosive enemies here. Very strong but explosive enemies, and trying to bring some peace and justice to all this. Um, yeah. Then the seventh house lord is Venus. Again, Venus super strong because it's exalted right now. So this is bringing peace and hospitality to partners, and trying, starting to move forward in a positive way. The eighth house here, the Lord is Mercury, Saturn, Rahu, and Ardra, aspected by Mars. Mars. I mean, three malefic planets like that. I mean, this is like, um, dual thoughts about military ambition. There might have been some waffling here, either about, probably about the surrender, I'm guessing, is because Moon, you can see Moon is Lord of the ninth house of government administration, and it's on the funeral pyre. It's a funeral pyre energy and an aspect of it. It's right there. You can see it just crossed Mars, and then it's got an exact aspect, or it's moving into an exact aspect with Saturn. So, yeah, complete re-engineering, not just public sentiments and mind, but also the government here. Um, then the 10th house lord is Sun. I mentioned that, aspected by Jupiter, K2, Saturn. So bridging separation, in public way on a public stage. Like the whole act, is like a very public stage. The 11th house lord is Mercury, aspected by Moon, uh, Mars, Venus, Mercury. Again, same thing. Order, bringing order in society and income as well. Because people like they didn't know like there was food around or how to obtain food or how to make money. And, there were a lot of men that were lost, and it was just nuts. So in the 12th house lord is Venus. It's strong. It's aspected by Mars and Sun. So this is like leading social grace, diplomacy. Sun is there. This is like leading social grace and diplomacy globally. So yeah, intense chart, but you can see like this is kind of where we were and where we're heading. Kind of a similar energy in terms of like when is this this craziness going to be over? So So on this slide, we've got Sun, Surya, and Mars, Mongol, two fire leadership planets. They're doing in May. So May 11th, Sun enters Kritika Nakshatra. So that's going to make Sun really, really strong. I mean, Sun's already strong because it's exalted in Aries, but Kritika Nakshatra is ruled by the Sun. So Sun is not only exalted by constellation, but it's swamped by Nakshatra because it's in its own Nakshatra sign. Okay, so again, Sun, government, authority, career, soul, health, a lot of activity, aggression, competition, because again, Kritika is a fiery, fighting nakshatra. I talked about Kartikeya, the commander in chief of the celestial army. And then this is all happening in a dual fire, or not a dual, movable fire sign of Aries. I mean, it's like, wild. But again, Sun entering Kritika, this could also mean moving into a work or career involving fire, fighting, writing, nurturing. Then May 12th, Mars enters Ashwini Nakshatra. Again, that's snake energy I mentioned. It's still debilitated in Cancer. So this could be like emotional acting out or lashing out. May 14th, Sun enters Taurus or Vrishabha. This is a samkranti or kind of shift of signs or for the Sun. That makes Sun unstable. I do have a video on samkranti and how to work with that energy. So if you're interested in that. But again, Sun moving from a movable fire sign to Taurus, a fixed earth sign. This is like about getting grounded and stable with leadership and boss, father, purpose. These are all things symbolized by the Sun. Yeah, so there's been a lot of action, but how much of it was really stable, hard to say. Now this is kind of like weeding out the stuff that's actually going to stick, rather than just like throwing darts at a wall. Um, And I also have a video, Mantras for the Sun or Surya, if you want to work with sun energy or improve that for yourself. May 20th, Saturn has an exact aspect on Sun. So again, some structural obstacle to work and all these things we've been talking about. May 25th, Sun enters Rohini Nakshatra. That should be pretty nice. At least Sun gets to slow down, enjoy life, smell the roses a little bit. This is kind of finding the sweet spot, of respite and growth, fulfillment for career and soul. Again, that's kind of nice, a nice way to end the month. And then Mercury is crossing the Sun May 30th. So there's going to bring this energy, activation of the logical mind communication. And again, possibly leading in a new creative direction, specifically, something involving writing or dexterity. It could be because Mercury represents like hands and arms, so it could be dexterity as well. Okay, so yeah, a lot shifting for the two fire planets here. Okay, so we have another famous chart. Again, this chart represents, it's very similar to the current sky pattern in a lot of ways. So this chart is for the first successful IVF transfer. So IVF is in vitro fertilization. So this is for, again, the first in vitro fertilization transfer that happened to create the first, basically test tube baby. I mean, I don't know if they use that terminology anymore, but that's what they used to call it. So yeah, and I got an exact time on this, so that was nice. So this happened in Oldham, UK, 12th of November, 1977 at midnight. Because what they were doing, the woman who got fertilized, they were tracking her hormone levels, and so midnight was sort of go time to do the transfer. Okay. So anyway, the Lugna Nakshatra is Maga. Maga is symbolized by a throne, so this is, strong leadership here. Sun Nakshatra is Vishaka, so victory at a cost. So Sun again, career. So there were it was a long process to get to this. There were many trials and errors, and I think what ended up really helping them is they were trying to manipulate the hormone cycles of women too much, and so what they were doing was like, relying on the natural cycle of the woman, but then introducing the sort of technical piece. And that's when the magic happened and actually worked to create a viable human being. So the moon is in Anuradha, so Victory Alliance. So I think this is a alliance not just of like the medical team and the genetics team, the science and medicine guys, because there's Edwards and Steptoe were responsible for this, I guess, primarily. So Edwards was the geneticist and Steptoe was OB gynecologist. And together they worked on the clinical and science side to make this happen, along with, the nurses and the other healthcare staff. And then again, it was like a alliance between the patients who were, essentially guinea pigs for this whole, weird new thing they were trying to do, and then the science medical community. So it was like a big victory here, and also a public victory here because moon represents public, but also moon represents mothers. So victory for mothers, you know. The day lord was Venus, women. The Vara lord, our lord moon. So Venus and moon are both feminine uh, planets representing women, or motherhood. Well, more moon is more motherhood, but Venus and moon both represent women. Bertasha was Saturn, Mercury, Ketu, Jupiter. You can see Saturn right at the top there. And Saturn is in Maga. So again, this is like a Saturn can represent separation and death. It can also represent endurance and again, engineering. So at least it looks like there's like both separation from children, but also like overcoming that separation from children, and also overcoming obstacles. Yeah, you know, um, and it's almost like making every mistake and becoming a master of your craft that way, that kind of thing. And then Mercury and K2. So Saturn, Mercury, and K2, all three of those planets have this energy of separation. Saturn for physical reasons, Mercury for mental reasons, and K2 for like unexpected, unexplained reasons. And then Jupiter represents children. So what I'm saying from the birth chart is separation from children or childbirth, or obstacles there. So this chart recreates the current sky pattern. So we have Jupiter in Gemini, as it will be at the end of the month. Mars is in Cancer, that's the same. Sun and Venus in Aries, Sun is there now, Venus will be there at the end of the month. Rahu and Ketu are on the Virgo Pisces axis. They're reversed, but they have a similar energy. There's a lot of similarities here. And then Mercury is aspecting Taurus. So you can see a lot of similarities. And so house by house, Lugna, rising sign, Leo, Simha, fixed fire sign. So just constant activity. I mean, this is just like overcoming all these, I think, trial and error moments here. Saturn, obstacles, delays, but also patience, fear, endurance, overcoming odds. The Lugnatia here is debilitated. Sun. Oh, sorry, did I say? Sun and Venus by aspect into Aries, but actually Venus and Sun are in Libra. I think I misspoke there. So the Lugnatia's Sun is debilitated in the third house, which is a kamasthana of enjoyment. I mean, in a way, I mean, all of this is for enjoyment, right? I mean, you could always adopt kids potentially or not have kids and be fine, that sort of thing. So, but there's there's like an deep emotional component, even if enjoyment sounds a little bit light and fluffy and like maybe dismissive. I mean, that's just like the literal translation of Kamasthana, but it's like, it's like a place of heart and emotions. Um, so Sun again debilitated there. Probably some, I'm sure this took a toll on their careers because they tried for many, many years to get this to work. And then the thing that was like Swa Venus. So again, really great advice, practical advice. But Venus is on Swati. Swati is symbolized by that nakshatra is symbolized by new growing grass blowing in the wind. So it's a very precarious, delicate, like literally like just very delicate seed, Like, is it going to sprout and grow and establish itself, or not? Is it going to work or not? Is it going to be viable or not? And Venus again is representing women, so not just the potential baby, but a lot of these women like had very fragile, especially back in this day. Like there was more pressure for women to have children, and sometimes they or society told them there were things wrong with them or whatever. So very delicate emotions and women. Um, there's some fragility here. Let's put it that way. And then Saturn is aspecting there. Saturn's exalted in Libra. So that's nice. So you have Saturn exalted there, Venus swather. That's going to make the third house really strong. And the third house represents, again, creativity, the arts, especially here, I would say the medical arts or engineering arts, like the Saturn is aspecting there in Mars. And we've been talking about Saturn and Mars together, engineering. So engineering's there. Venus is creativity. Jupiter, children. Venus, women. Sun, career. Is that all of them? Yeah, Venus and Jupiter, the spiritual advisor, and Venus, Jupiter's the spiritual advisor, Venus is the practical advisor. So, a lot of good advice, overcoming obstacles, good engineering, and also the third house is dexterity. So, like I read in the notes about when they were harvesting the egg, like there was some difficulty because there was some scar tissue that needed to be removed from the egg, so it wasn't completely covered up. Um, but they managed. It worked. So yay. And Saturn's debilitated. Mars is in Pusha. So again, Mars, there's this erratic energy, but Mars is trying to stabilize things physically and emotionally here. And then the retrograde Jupiter. So again, Jupiter's in Ardra. Again, that storm cloud, sadness. And with Jupiter there, this is like sadness over children, stormy childbirth, you know. Yeah, so this is, I would say, a professional win regarding dexterity, surgery. Mars can also be surgery and chemistry as well. Engineering, delicate women, difficulty with children. There's also, to make them stronger, Mars and Moon are in parivartana exchange of houses. So that's going to protect the 12th house because Mars is debilitated in the 12th house. That would potentially on its own signify like losses through surgery or chemistry. But with Moon going on there, you're going to protect a bit. And Mars is going to protect the Moon and Mercury. So this is a deep transformation. The fourth house here, Moon again, karako, bhava, nashaya, digbala, exaggerated Moon. But Mars is going to short up. Moon is also debilitated in Scorpio, so very exaggerated Moon. And Mercury's there. So again, the two mind planets. So this is like a deep transformation of mind, also decisions, and also family lineage. Fourth house is, family lineage here. So this is like bringing new life to that potentially for a lot of people. Yeah, so this Mars and Moon, so you're gonna have Mars and Moon all over the chart, and again, Mars surgery, chemistry, and Moon motherhood. Especially Moon in the fourth house. I mean, difficulty with mothering. Debilitated Moon, but Digbala, there's some strength here, but Mars is gonna strengthen the mothers and the family line here. Yeah, I mean, this chart is like pretty wild. I mean, So the second house lord is Mercury. It's an Anurata. So again, more alliance victory stuff going on here. Rahu is in Hasta. Rahu can be like a procedure, like a technical procedure, some weird procedure. And Hasta is like a hands-on, like literally Hasta is symbolized by hands. So this is like some strange hands-on technology that they've been talking about. That's actually a benefit here with Rahu in the second house of assets. Second house is also families, inner circle. This is also communication. So this is like literally I think also literally the call for the medical team to organize an unusual hands-on procedure. Like you can look at it that way. Third house I've been talking about, through the Venus above, again, really strong third house. So the dexterity, the creativity and engineering all came together very strong there. Fourth house, Lord, Mars, again, new Moon, Digbala, debilitated, exaggerated Moon, Mercury, all in Anurata. So the team, success, support of family, public. Also, fourth house is genetics, women, lineage, home, and happiness. All the stuff these families are looking for. Fifth house lord is Jupiter. It's aspecting its own sign. That in and of itself, like when you have Jupiter aspecting its own sign in the fifth house, when Jupiter's transiting that way, that can indicate a child's being born. So that's also another good indication that this is successful, besides like the moon and Mercury and Anuradha and all these, Swa, Venus, exalted Saturn, parivartana, moon and Mars. You can see that this is actually um, like if you were a Vedic astrologer and they'd asked you, like, when is the best moment to do this is how you do it, folks. I don't know if they did. I'm guessing they didn't, but I'm like, this was like a perfect moment in time because, again, the moon just a few hours before this would not have created this parivartana with Mars. Like, that in and of itself would have, like, might have changed the outcome here. But this is like all systems go, like very, very nice chart here. And that's why it worked, at this moment in time. So, but the fifth lord, even though you can see like the Jupiter aspecting its own sign of fifth house, indicating potentially child, because the fifth house represents children, Jupiter represents children, and it lines up really nicely. But again, Jupiter's in Ardra. So there's a storm and sadness. So this could be like, again, potentially like the loss of, a viable child. Um, Also, Jupiter is advice, so there's good advice here. So if you put this water dice right here, sad storm, but success in advising about children. So that's true. Sixth house lord is Saturn, aspect by exalted Mars. So again, a success in nurturing surgery and chemistry, I would say here, some procedure, surgical procedure, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Seventh house lord is Saturn, aspecting its own. Especially Aquarius, because the seventh house here is Aquarius. Aquarius by itself, like, is often to me like the NASA engineer type mentality, because it's a fixed air sign. So the people who just like can go and go and go mentally and like work on a project for like 30 or 40 years and like never give up. I mean, especially when you have Saturn aspecting into its own sign. I mean, this is like a serious feat after all the failures, that they had before this one finally worked. But Saturn aspecting its own, Mars aspecting here, Jupiter's so independent business, yes. Partnerships, engineering, supporting difficulty with children, yes. All of the above to all these. Eighth house, Lord Jupiter in Ardra. So again, a lot of, and K2's there. K2's in what? K2's in. Try write what K2's in. I did not write what K2's in. I think K2 is in. I have to check. Hold on. 13 to. It might be in Revati. It's either in Uttar or Revati. Yeah, but again, separation there, and then Jupiter again in Ardra, like sadness about children here, and the deep psychology. I mean, you see it in the fifth house of intellect, and you see it in the eighth house of deep psychology. So yeah, it's like getting objective about that, and like maybe moving things in a more positive, direction. Then let's see. Oh, the eighth house also wanted to have deep thoughts regarding groups. So again, the Jupiter is in the 11th house of clubs groups. So there's a whole bunch of people, right, having to deal with this issue. And children, unusual, unstable. This could be also K2 there and Jupiter. This could be an unusual, unstable sexual system, male or female, that's preventing the pregnancies from being viable. Yeah, what else is? Also, like, this could represent miscarriages in the eighth house. So, yeah, then the ninth house lord is Mars, aspected, an exalted sun, Swa, Venus. So, high level success, institution, leadership, management, practical. Yeah, so the team was on fire. I mean, the leadership of this team was on fire. Really worked out well for them. The 10th house lord is Venus, aspected by Saturn, Moon, Mercury. So yeah, Venus is strong. Work, procedure, for fragile mind, emotions, women, all the above here. Overcoming obstacles. 11th house, Lord Mercury, retrograde Jupiter. Success in giving group options because 11th house is Gemini, so dual ideas. So this could be giving this group of people who have trouble having conceiving children or maintaining pregnancies or whatever, to give them a new option, to have a biological child. Then the 12th house here, 12th house Lord's moon, aspect its own through parivartana, debilitated Mars. So this is protection from loss of this whole procedure here. So the first IVF baby, her name was Louise Brown. She was born from this transfer, IVF, first successful IVF transfer. Edwards was the geneticist and steptoe was OB-gynecologist. And Edwards won the Nobel Prize in either physiology or medicine for this whole thing. I think by the time that happened, steptoe had passed away, and so he got a bunch of posthumous awards for all of this effort here. So yeah, interesting. Okay, so on this slide, we have the slow-moving planets for May. So Jupiter, Guru, Saturn, Shani, and Rahu, Ketu. So 9th through 19th May, Jupiter, Sandhi, that's going to be unstable. That can destabilize Jupiterian things, so education, children, finance, banking, law. 14th of May, Jupiter enters Gemini or Mithuna, and it's going to be there until June 1st, 2026. So it's going to be a shift from fixed Earth of Taurus to a dual air sign. So this could be a lot of like, instead of building wealth, like physical wealth, like Jupiter can represent banking and wealth. This could be like, contemplating, different ideas, like being more philosophical potentially, and like intellectual property potentially. And then Jupiter's aspecting, instead of the earth sign, so building up again earthly things. And Scorpio is no aspecting air signs and Sagittarius. So some fire here with Sagittarius, but it's aspecting the air signs. So there's going to be a lot of like generation of ideas. So moving from stable, practical, tangible, fixed emotions, deep transformation to multiple thoughts, ideas, philosophies, and actions here. So yeah. Then May 18th, Rahu enters Aquarius, K2 enters Leo, and they're going to be there till December 5th, 2026. So this could be pursuing unusual fixed ideology with Rahu in Aquarius, because Aquarius is a fixed idea sign, a fixed air sign. So, and Rahu's moving out of a dual water sign, so moving into the ideal realm and out of the emotional realm for Rahu. K2's moving from Earth sign Virgo to Leo. So this could be like actually like relinquishing a stage or public role or leadership, um, instead of tangible. So when K2 was in Virgo, it was about kind of sorting through like what do I keep and what do I let go of in a tangible, like in terms of tangible things. And with K2 moving into Leo represents like a stage, and also like a public role in leadership. So this could be like releasing that, like especially when we were talking about the collective energy of people like losing jobs and income and stuff like that. Like a lot of what happens with that too is people lose their, whatever, their pecking order or their authority or their, I'm a big shot, this and that, whatever. And they have to start all over again. Very humbling experience. Um, and also for some people, like they identify so much with their work and their role that, it can be a really big, deep hit, even to the self-esteem. So anyway, it's kind of like, but it could also be people are, so sometimes it happens to you. It feels like it's happening to you. But sometimes people are just like, I'm not, I have all this authority and money and all this kind of stuff, but am I really happy? Like it could be like, just saying this life, is not for me. I want something different, could be that as well. May 20th, Saturn has an exact aspect on Sun. So again, structural delays, obstacles, and protecting a nurturing role. Because Sun's going to be in Kritika at that point. And again, our career, father, authority, a monkey wrench here, essentially. And then 25th of May, Saturn is exact aspect on Mercury. So similar to exact aspect on Sun, but now we're talking about ideas, decisions, communication, education, friendships even could be. So yeah, so that's slow-moving planets. Then the moon, just to mention the moon a little bit here, I do separate videos on the moon, so I get into a lot more depth and detail. But just to mention them because they're always important. May 12th, there's going to be a full lunar purnima in Libra, Tula, Vishaka. So this is a neutral sign, movable air sign. Neutral sign for the moon. but the moon's going to be opposed to the exalted sun in Kritika and Mercury in Ashwini. So again, this could be fighting, a lot of fighting energy because Kritika and Ashwini are about fighting and rescuing, fighting to save something at all costs. Because again, Vishaka, it's again, they're all, all these Kritikas fighting, Ashwini's fighting, Vishaka's fighting. So but there's no real softness here, and Moon and Mercury are involved, so mind and emotions, yeah, so something is at stake here. Then the 26th of May, new moon or Amavasya in Taurus or Vrishaba, and Rohini. I mean, that's going to be pretty nice because moon is exalted in Taurus, and Rohini, again, luscious, creative, fertile, attractive, seductive energy. That's going to be a pretty nice way to kind of end the month. And again, you can see like the energies that are going, like even the full moon versus a new moon. Like already, that's like fighting and agitation going to like, hey, let's hang out and enjoy ourselves. But with this new moon, again, it's going to be conjoined with Sun and Rohini, Mercury and Kritika, although I think the next day Mercury goes into Rohini as well. So almost 3 planets in Rohini, that's why I think, again, this might be the launch of a creative writing career project, something like that, which is nice. So that's cool. And so here's our last famous chart. This is a birth chart for Sonja Weigert, or Weigert. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. She's Norwegian. She was an actress slash spy in World War II. So the reason why I even know about her is that there was a movie I saw on Amazon called The Spy, and it was about her life. So thus you see like the inspiration I get from movies to look up birth charts for kind of random, but interesting people. And her birth chart actually very much mimics the current sky pattern. And I don't think I mentioned because I put it on the wrong slide and I didn't read it because I took it off. And then anyway, the chart I did for the in vitro fertilization, that was also inspired by a movie. And that movie is called Joy. I saw it on Netflix. So it's weird. I mean, it actually works out pretty well. Sometimes I watch these movies and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm wasting my time, like, spending too much time watching movies. But then it's actually productive for the astrology because it leads me to like interesting, stories and people, and more often than not, I mean, surprisingly often, when I start looking at charts related to the movie, there's one of them that pops out pretty strongly is like, oh, wow, that's like exactly like the current sky pattern. So this is one of those. So Sonia here, she was born November 11th, 1913. I don't have a birth time for her. So this is a sun rising chart for her, Surya Lagna chart. She was born in Notodden, Norway, on that day. I don't have a Lagna nakshatra because I don't have an exact birth time. The sun nakshatra is in Vishaka, so again, victory at all costs. And the moon nakshatra is in Chitra. Oh no, wait, moon is not in Chitra. Moon is in Revati. I gotta change that. So moon, Revati is all about hospitality and traveling. So with her, she was traveling and very hospitable. Like she started off as an actress, and then she was recruited by the Swedish government to be a spy against the Nazis. Okay, so she was traveling back and forth between Sweden. She traveled a lot. I mean, she went to like I think France and learned French, and Switzerland or Austria or something. She traveled a lot, but especially during the war, she kept going back and forth between Sweden and Norway. And she was recruited by the Swedish government to spy on the Nazis in Germany, or not the Nazis in Norway, because what happened was, I think the Germans took over Norway like within a couple hours, and so Sweden was trying to prevent the Nazis from infiltrating them as well. So they recruited her as a spy, and then what happened was the Nazis recruited Sonia as like a counter, whatever, like a almost like also as a spy. So she was sort of being a double agent. But what happened was, at least technically, she was double agent. But what happened was any information she shared with the Nazis, she passed by the Swedish government first to make sure that anything she shared, it had to be believable, but nothing that would actually like cause any damage, because she had to be a believable spy. So anyway, the moon here in Revati is again, hospitality because she was like hobnobbing with all these high-level Nazis in Scandinavia. And, at least based on the movie, it didn't say in her bio and Wikipedia, but at least in the movie, I mean, she was in, romantic relationships with them, you know, um, gathering information that way. So, yeah, so, hospitality, and traveling, that was our moon nakshatra. So the day lord, depending on the time of day, was either moon or Mars, and the change there was at 8:10 a.m. Either way, Moon and Mars are both independent planets, so there's an independent nature to her. Hera Lord, I have no idea because I don't have the exact birth time. The birth Shah was either Mercury or Ketu. Again, quite different planets in some ways, but in some ways similar because Mercury and Ketu are both, again, separationist planets. Mercury is going to be more analytical, logical. Ketu is going to be more like wild and out there. So, and the change there was at 16:42 p.m. Okay, so either way, she was independent. Either way, she was kind of a separatist, again, could kind of be objective, and I think that's how she managed to maintain this, double life or maybe even triple life here. Okay. So how is her birth chart similar to the currents? Uh, um, how do I say? How is her birth chart similar to the current sky pattern? Hold on a second. Okay, so yeah, I just took a couple minutes to fix the Revati thing with the moon nakshatra, and then also I was missing some arrows, so now it makes a little bit more sense. Some of it. Um, anyway, so where was I? So how does this create the current sky pattern? I think that's where I was, right? Yeah, so Sun and Venus and Aries. I mean, not simultaneously, but they're both going to be in Aries this month. Mercury's in Taurus. Jupiter is in on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. Saturn is in Taurus. Rahu Ketu, Aquarius, and Leo. So you can see that her chart is closer to what the end of the month looks like. Mars is in Cancer, and then again, I was inspired to look up her because of the movie Spy that I saw on Amazon. So yeah, if you're interested in movies, that might be cool for you. And also, that's why I said if you know if you watch any kind of historically based films with interesting people or stories or whatever, if you drop them in the comments for me, that'd be great. So I can watch the movie and enjoy that, but then also maybe get some fresh birth charts. That'd be great for all this stuff. So chart by or house by house, Lugna Libra to Law. So tends to be a business oriented type person. Movable air sign, a lot of ideas. There's a Swa Venus there in Chitra. It's a Malavi yoga. It's also bhavat bhavam. So Swa means that Venus is its own house. That's going to create strength. Chitra is a nakshatra. The symbol of that is a cut gemstone. So Chitra, because of the cuts in the gemstone, it's about architecture, but it's a gemstone, so it's like something beautiful and valuable. And then bhavat bhavam, oh, Malavi yoga is again pancha mahapurusha yoga. It's a sign of a great individual. And then bhavat bhavam, the first house lord's gone to the first house, so um, that's going to be like a emphasis of self, or at least physicality and psychology and that sort of thing, which she would need to be as an actress, But also, Venus in its own house in the top, that's going to bring art, creativity, beauty, romance, and Mars is aspecting there as well. So, seduction, sexiness, charm, she needed all those qualities to be both an actress and a spy. Um, yeah, so, and then the debilitated Mars aspects here as well. Mars is in Punarvasu, and Mars is sandhi, you can see, so it's unstable there, besides being debilitated. And Punarvasu is symbolized by a quiver of arrows, so it's like that box you hang on your back as an archer, and then you string up the arrows and shoot them off, and maybe go out and retrieve them and put them back in the box. So there's this cycling energy going on here, but also it's a weapon, like So she basically, it's sort of weaponizing her. I see this as weapon her like beauty and attraction and seductiveness, weaponizing it. Okay. Yeah. And then so this energy is going to be like a focus on the self, and maybe even like turn the self into a commodity, which is essentially what happened, through both practice work and the spying work. There's a debilitated sun here in Vishaka, so this is going to be like victory at all costs. And there was a huge cost to her. I mean, part of, at least in this movie, I don't know, it didn't say in her Wikipedia page or whatever, but at least in the movie, part of the reason why she agreed to be a spy for the Swedish government is her father was imprisoned by the Nazis. And so to get him out, she agreed to do this. So I don't know, based on the movie, who knows? I don't know if it's actually true, but in real life. But um so yeah, so the thing is, a son, like debilitated son, this could be a father who's debilitated, which, being in a Nazi prison sounds like is not a, happy situation, right? Um, her own health could be at stake here, but also again, the cost, I mean, if the Nazis found out about her, like, they could torture, kill her, her family, whatever. In the end, they ended up doing a smear camp. They figured out that she was giving them limited information, not real information. And so they did a smear campaign on her and basically destroyed her career. I mean, her acting career. I mean, she still did some work, but not like she basically lost her high level of popularity in Scandinavia. She was like one of the biggest Scandinavian actresses at the time, but she lost all that. Because the Nazis basically said, she was doing it for whatever self-gain reasons or whatever, and kind of twisted the whole story against her. So what else is in the lugna here? So focus on self, self is a commodity. Also, we have Rahu aspecting here. Rahu again, ambition, but also hidden unexpected energy. And I've mentioned, I often find Rahu or Ketu in the lugna of people who are like actors, actresses, models. Um, because they're in disguise, right? I mean, they have these different roles that they play and different costumes, and there's a hidden unexpected kind of energy to them. So this is I think the Rahu was this, not only the actress modeling, I guess she did, yeah, she must have done modeling too, but also the spy work. Like it all kind of goes together here. It's just like she was, whether she was using the skill that you could call this a skill set for actors, you know, kind of movie work, or being a spy for the government, it kind of was all the same. So we put this all together. Oh, and then Rahu was in Purva Bhadrapada. So she was like this is like a deadly kind of energy. She was, yeah, so that's a pretty intense energy to work with. So you put this all together, architect of beauty, art, charm, winning at all costs, career, also the star power here with the sun and Mars. Like there's a lot of fire energy here. So that's probably part of why she was a star. Also hidden identity, both as an actress and as a spy. Two-faced, oh, that's another thing. So Purva, I mostly talk about that is like the symbol of that nakshatra as being the front legs of the funeral pyre. But another symbol of it is a two-faced person. So, this is her being able to talk, and act and be, on two sides of the fence here, sort of be a double spy, double agent, for Swedish government and the Nazi regime. I mean, that's pretty intense. Yeah, I mean, like, who wants to sign up for that? And not me. But you can see like her acting, modeling, spying is all here. But again, based on her beauty, her art, her charm, her diplomacy, her social grace. I mean, she was able to get in, on the inside here with these high level officials on both sides. So you could also see this like as basically she was the honey trap. I mean, that's how they usually say it, right? When they use like these really beautiful, seductive women to like draw out the bad guys, or get information from. So this is a honey trap here. Um, there are also, I would say, some erratic, again, actions going on here. She was a leader, because both the leadership planets are here, Sun and Mars. But the thing is, like, they're both debilitated. Sun's debilitated and Mars is debilitated. So, I think that's why it all turned sour for her over time. If they were both exalted, that might be a different story. But yeah, anyway, let's go through the other houses here. But that's just the, top here in the sun, sun constellation. The second house lord is a sandhi, debilitated Mars and Punarvasu. So again, there's this cycling energy. Again, there, cycling, not just like a Punarvasu is about having a home base, going out and coming back, like the arrows in the quiver. So she had a home base. She would go back and forth between Sweden and Norway while she was spying. And then, before that, as an actress and whatever, she was traveling all over the place in Europe. Um, Mercury's there in Honorata. So again, she's able to talk, on in all these. She knew a bunch of languages, so she was able to go and like build alliances through all of her traveling and her language skills and stuff like that. It's also aspected by retrograde Saturn and Mrigashirksha. So um, Saturn is here in the eighth house of deep psychology, but also scandals and hidden secrets. And Saturn is in Mrigashirksha, so this is like a seeking energy here. So she's looking for dirt on people. She's looking for scandals, like it was her, her thing. Um, she's looking for dirt on people. So this is some, second house sketchy work involving the ability to build alliances while also seeking hidden dirt and scandals. Like it's kind of a wild mix, in the second house here. And the third house lords of Swa, Jupiter, and Purvashada. This is the art of speech. This is arts, the third house here, art of speech. But also Purvashada, this is going back and forth. The symbol of Purvashada is a winnowing basket. So it's like going back and forth. So this is another indication. Rahu is again in Purvabhadrapada, indicating two-faced person. Jupiter's in Purvashada. So again, talking out of both sides of your mouth, potentially. So we have two indications here that this is like her skill set that made her, successful on both sides, on both of these endeavors here. Yeah, so the third house, art of speech, double talk, I would say. Fourth house Lord Saturn. And we've got Mars aspecting there. So, this is going to be, literally these weird, erratic, piercing actions underground, like undercover actions here. Because Mars is debilitated in the 10th house of, 9 to 5 work. But this Mars is exalted, and Mars represents property. So this is literally like digging, um, deep underground for all this dirt she's looking to find on people, or the Nazi regime to help the Swedish government. Then the fifth house lord is Saturn. So again, the seeking energy and scandals, and then Rahu and Mars there. So again, and Saturn's aspecting its own sign. So this is going to be very strong. Her intellect, and the fifth house represents intellect. So this is going to be like Rahu is going to be unusual and creative, and again, dual faced. Saturn is seeking energy, but again, like fixed air sign here. So this is going to bring strength to the intellect, and also again, like um, strength of mind. I mean, that's pretty nuts. I mean, I would probably have a meltdown just if somebody asked me to do that. I don't think I could actually do it. She she had the again, that's part of what helped her is she has the kind of mind, and you can see she has Rahu and Saturn in the fifth house of intellect, and then she has Saturn and Mercury in the eighth house of deep psychology. These are all kind of like separatist, kind of, maybe ability to rationalize stuff and construct stuff, because Mars is also aspecting here in the fifth house. So Mars and Saturn is engineering and also like, like industrializing stuff, so mentally, like on the top level, very beautiful, seductive. I think she sang and stuff too, like, this like kind of nightingale type persona. But her mind was very like, you know, kind of subjective and distance. Like this is all this whole thing, whether it was the actressing or the spying, was all manufactured to her benefit. I mean, she was like no problem, like putting these disguises or personas together to make things work for her and her career, and her life. So yeah, interesting stuff. So yeah, the fifth house lord, Saturn S acting its own sign, Rahu and Mars, engineering disguises acting. Fifth house again is like a natural stage. So that's all there. Then sixth house lord is Jupiter. Again, that purvashada energy. So sorting through, and the sixth house is enemies. And the moon, so sorting through the mind of enemies through traveling and hospitality. It's really kind of get in the sixth house and hosting, work hostily. Because the moon is also the lord of the 10th house of day to day activities like 9 to 5 work. So she worked to sort through the mind of traveling enemies. So the traveling enemies meaning the Nazis. I mean, that's kind of wild. Seventh house lord is Mars, which is debilitated, and sandhi. It's aspected by Sun though there, so that's going to make her independent business of acting and or spying strong. Venus is going to be in there as well. Jupiter's going to be in there as well. So Venus and Jupiter are the two diplomatic planets. And also, when you get Venus and Jupiter together, you get like good times and party usually, typically. So she's going to generate a lot of buzz through all of this. The glamour and the makeup and costumes and the beautiful and the face and body and the singing and all that. Like it's a whole big business for her. So but what else do I have in there? Independent business and partners. So also Sun exalted here. These are going to be high level. So she could have been like some vaudeville actress or whatever, like, but she was dealing on a high level for her actressing, but also high level, administrators on the Swedish side and the Nazi side here. And then the Sun exalted. I mean, these partners are going to be ambitious and ruthless administrators. So high level, ambitious, ruthless leaders here. I mean, these are like people you don't want to mess with. So yeah, it's like, wow, she had a lot of chutzpah, which you would expect because Sun and Mars here, that's going to give her a lot of firepower, even though they're debilitated. I mean, fire is going to be like, and Rahu here, ambition and energy and drive and, all making this work for her. Eighth house again, the Lord is Venus, which we know is strong. Saturn and aspected by Mercury is there. So detachment about practical matters of art, like she, as much as this worked for her, the beauty and actressing, creativity, and all this stuff, like she was very detached from it. Looks like, which worked for her, I guess. Then the ninth house lord is Mercury. That's again an honorata, and no, aspected, but it's 6 houses away, so there's trouble with alliances of the government. Aspected by Jupiter and Rahu. So again, there's going to be some hidden double talk action going on with the government and authorities here. Um, but trying to build alliances, hidden dual work, building alliances with the government, like success and penetrating these upper echelons here to get the information, back to the Swedish government. The 10th house lord is Moon, debilitated Mars is there, so hostile actions, traveling, military, trying to, again, Moon is in Revati, so trying, like, hosting and providing hospitality for traveling, military, what is it, leaders, yeah, okay, there you go. So then 11th house lord is Sun. And we have a sandhi Ketu there and Uttara Falguni. So again, Leo represents a stage. So this is a public stage, group stage here. It's also aspected by Jupiter. So again, Ketu, hidden energy. So there's entertainment with a purpose. Double talk here with the Jupiter and Purvashada. And then Sun, again, high level, but debilitated leaders as well. So high-level connections, entertaining with the purpose, sorting through double talk. So not just she's doing the double talk, but she's trying to sort through they're all doing double talk. She's trying to sort through all the, lies and, false information and everything. She's trying to figure out what's actually true to bring it back to the Swedish government. Otherwise, like, it's useless to them, right? So then the 12th house lord is Mercury, Virgo here, losses, expenditures, that sort of thing, aspected by the moon. So Virgo can represent organizing physical things, but the moon represents the mind and emotions. And again, it's in Revati, so there's a traveling here, but there's also like sorting through global and public loss. So again, this comes down to the smear campaign that the Nazis did on her career once they figured out she was only giving them limited okayed information from the Swedish government. So yeah, so she lost a lot. She lost her career. I mean, she didn't lose her life. I think her father was saved, so that happened. But again, this is Sun and Vishaka. I mean, debilitated Sun and Vishaka. It's like a career winning at all costs. But it's like, what was the win? What were the costs? I mean, it's pretty stark for her. And again, we don't have an exact birth time, but whether she started off in the birth of Mercury or Ketu, that means she ran Venus and Sun, again, these strong planets, well, Venus is strong, about the age of 10 to 38 when she was most active in both the actressing and the spying gigs here. And actually, in the Wikipedia page, at 10 years old, she had her stage debut. And that's when she started, that's about the time she probably started the Venus dasha. So interesting there. So she was recruited by Sweden to spy for them in 1949 and to help her father out in Nazi prison. That 1949 date doesn't seem right, but that's what I got off of Wikipedia because it's like the war was over by then. So yeah, I think I'll just like delete that. So anyway, forget the 1949 date. That doesn't make sense. Maybe that was an error on the Wikipedia page. Her code name was Bill, which is kind of funny. And then the Nazis did a smear campaign on her acting career. And then it wasn't until 25 years after her death that she was vindicated in 2005 that her name was cleared or whatever, that she wasn't actually like a sympathizer to the Nazi regime, that she was actually, very helpful for preventing larger Nazi dissemination in Scandinavia. So yeah, interesting chart. But again, you can see also like when you start getting these planets, in like Revati and Mrigashirsha and Rohini and stuff like that. And I mean, not that well, she doesn't have any Rohini placements, but like Venus is kind of like that. I mean, Venus and Chitra is kind of like that. I mean, there's like creativity and beauty and stuff like that. So it's like you can see in her chart that there's, even in her posthumous recovery, that there was some vindication after a very long, tough struggle, which again is very similar to the current sky pattern and what a lot of people are experiencing on the planet currently. Okay, so there you go. So as always, thanks so much for stopping by, listening to one of my talks. Again, all my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology or my concepts playlist, they can be found there. The birth chart archive list is updated for 2025, so if you're looking for more famous charts, you can check out that video for a list of them and the videos you can find them in. I do offer individual birth chart readings. If that's interesting to you, you can email heartlightastro@yahoo.com for more info on that. I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine where I talk about Ayurveda, so traditional Indian medicine, yoga, homeopathy, and naturopathic medicine. So other alternative paradigms of medicine, and the name of that channel is Nature Source Care, so that's out there too for you. So yeah, so again, thanks so much for all your support, whether it's watching videos or subscribing or liking or commenting or, now maybe helping me build my database of birth charts, famous birth charts. People have been sending in, really nice, generous donations as well. So, all the different ways that you guys support my work in the channel is very much appreciated. So as always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. All right, so take good care, and until the next one, namaste.